Hello and welcome to Learn It from a Layman. We are back again after another hiatus. Turns out that Cameron's busy and I have 5 children, so life is crazy. But we had to come back because the clamoring, the incessant letters and fan mail kept us in the podcasting world. Right, Cam?
Yes, I mean, when you say letters, we mean electronic letters. They flooded our inboxes, just
Email, if you
wanting
will.
us to come back and give more of what we do for everyone.
Words of wisdom.
It
Let it
it yes. We'll just leave it there.
Exactly.
Less is more.
Exactly. Especially of us. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Halloween. It is the topic du jour, apropos the holiday season, the first holiday season of the fall. So this is one that a lot of people treat, I think, very much like Christmas. People that don't have the same investment in Christmas invest a lot of importance in Halloween. Agree, Cameron?
There are a lot of similarities with Halloween and Christmas. People are scary and break into houses and want things from other people,
That's right.
So there are a lot of similarities there.
Exactly. And there's food involved. So
yeah, food and children expecting gifts.
I don't give my children anything for Halloween. So I don't even give them candy. They have to get that from the other people. Okay, so let's start this at the beginning like we frequently do with these types of topics. We're going to talk just briefly about the Halloween's history. We won't spend too much time because that's boring, but just so everyone is clear on this, because I sure wasn't. Halloween is, All Hallows Eve. So this is it's got some pagan roots from some Celtic harvest festivals from centuries and centuries ago. But it was Christianized pretty, what the dates were when it was Christianized, but hundreds and pretty early. Yep. And so it became a day to remember. So All Hallows Eve, the day before All Hallows Day, is the day that you remember saints and martyrs and the faithful members of the church that have died. So this is a Christian holiday that is, once again, kind of come from pagan roots, become a Christian holiday, and once again kind of lost Christian significance. It's now just a very much a global holiday. I was recently today talking to a friend of ours who's from Australia. She's not Christian herself, and her mother is over visiting. She still lives in Australia, and she said her mother is the one that inspired her with her love for Halloween. Like I said, they were not particularly Christian. They don't really have a Christian background, and they come from Australia, and they love Halloween. So it is a global holiday. It's kind of a global idea of just being able to now go out and steal candy from people and dress up however you want.
I think we should also, with the Hispanic culture, Day of the Dead, where
yes,
there's a very similar Halloween theme to that as well. So
it's true, and there are other cultures that celebrate it in a slightly different way. We're not going to necessarily spend time on that, but to each their own. I do think that we're going to spend most of the time on the commercialized version of Halloween, the picture of spooky, ghouly, ghosty type stuff, costumes and candy. I do think this All Hallows Eve, Day of the Dead stuff is very interesting from a more spiritual and meaningful part of life. We don't spend a lot of time on that for Halloween, but I think it is interesting to at least touch on and to consider that it is a day that we can remember good people in our lives that have passed on. Obviously, if you're Christian, then that's a Christian holiday. If not, it's been taken by lots of other religions, lots of other cultures, and kind of used for a similar purpose. So take that for what it's worth. I think it's worth a lot, honestly. But we're going to talk more about the commercial aspects of it because, well, I have 5 children and they're all looking for costume ideas. And so if you're listening to us in order to get costume inspiration, hopefully we can help with that, and then some ideas for Halloween traditions and things that might be fun to do. So let's start digging in there. Now, Cameron, do you have Halloween traditions that you'd like to share? Anything that you particularly focus on or do ritually during Halloween?
I ritually like to always want to scare small children for Halloween.
They must be small. Well, actually, to you, most people are small. So
most people are small to me, but I think it's fair is fair. You know, I'm afraid of midgets, so I can scare small
little people.
Sorry, little people. I think it's a good turnaround. You know, one day a year, I get to scare some people that scare me. 364 days of the year.
Exactly. So good. Okay, and how do you go about scaring small people?
I usually just stand somewhere and just stare creepily, and that usually does it for me.
Doesn't sound like you need a special holiday for that, though.
I don't. I really didn't have a lot of stock in. I think growing up, we always came up with elaborate ideas that we wanted to do to scare people.
We did, didn't we? Yes.
Have firecrackers next to the sidewalk to go off and noises, like really to scare people. I think that's always been kind of a part of the commercial thing that a lot of people like to do is either go get scared or want to do something scary because it's in a good fun way.
Yeah.
Some people like to experience that. That's always been fun. I found interesting.
Yeah. I think that haunted houses are fun. I have not done one in a long time, so that's my caveat here. But when I used to do haunted houses, I really enjoyed them. So if you haven't done one in a while, like me, maybe go out and make that something that you do. From what I've read, it's actually good for you to be scared sometimes. It can be good for your heart and general cardiovascular health to actually get that shock sometimes. So I think going out and doing a haunted house is probably better than going to a scary movie. They might have some similar things, but at least you get to walk around, you get to interact with people, and you get to figure out if you have epilepsy with the strobe lights.
Yes. There's actually a haunted house here in Utah called the Haunted Castle. They have a scale between 1 and 5 for how scary things get. Apparently, I had a lady, I work at a hotel, who went through this just a couple days ago. She did level 4, and apparently at level 4, they're allowed to touch you.
Oh,
and do things.
That raises the stakes.
They actually threw a bag over her head and picked her up and dragged her off somewhere else. And
oh my God,
she actually got shocked a little bit. And apparently that was level 4. And she's like, I have no clue what level 5 is, but I'm going back to do level 5.
You actually lose a limb at level 5.
So like she said, I think you could get strapped down on a table and they'll actually scare the living daylights out of you.
Hopefully we're not talking torture techniques, but
I have no clue. I mean, I guess if you sign the waiver, they can waterboard you.
My gosh.
But apparently they can go a little bit more to the extreme.
I didn't even know places like that existed. When I'm thinking about a haunted house, I'm thinking about the jump scare type stuff, and generally, it's kind of very tame and something kids can usually handle. But that sounds like you need to be.
That's the scale level. They have one for the kiddos, and stuff like that, and then they just go up. So,
wow.
There's a lot of places out like that. So, if you have one locally and you want to get scared, go for it, have some fun.
Yeah.
So, other traditions that I've actually picked up after being married is my in-laws, they do a creepy spaghetti dinner every Halloween. So they like to make things kind of gruesome and stuff like that. Like I don't know, spaghetti and meatballs. Meatballs are like drink, like that,
Right.
um, red punch, stuff like that. So
Sure.
has stuff with that.
That's fun.
So
Yeah, and in my area, in my church group, we have a guy that often it's a family, but an older guy kind of heads the father of the home kind of heads it up. They invite a bunch of people over, and they do it's a jack-o'-lantern carving Halloween activity, and what he does is he does a bunch of science experiments that involve so you can get your jack-o'-lantern to barf, for example. A bunch of yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what all he does. He does lots of things with like soap and dry ice and just some very tame things. And one of the ones that he also does, this is usually how he finishes, is he soaks um, he soaks toilet paper rolls in like uh, gas,
all right.
kerosene maybe. Anyway, and then we'll drop one in your jack-o'-lantern and light it on fire so that it looks like, well, I mean, so your jack-o'-lantern is essentially being sacrificed, but it's for a noble cause. And last year we went, this was very dangerous. I'm not mentioning any names here, all right? The jack-o'-lantern was much too close to the pallet of toilet paper that had been soaked in, this kerosene or gasoline or whatever it was. And when he lit the one on fire, the plume of fire coming out of the jack-o'-lantern jumped and went over to the pallet full of toilet papers doused in kerosene, gasoline, and essentially lit the whole thing on fire. And this is just in his backyard. Right, and all of a sudden you've got a full-on blaze that can't be doused. Like you can't just put it out with water, and this will also tell you the kind of person I am. But to be fair, we were trying to leave before that, but at that point I took my kids and left, and nobody died. So
there we go. Hopefully,
so I don't recommend doing that for your Halloween, but everything before that, fun, involve the kids love those types of activities as far as barfing jack-o'-lanterns and jack-o'-lanterns with bubbles coming out of their head and all those types of things. So that's an option.
I like carving a jack-o'-lantern. I do 2 or 3 every year. Just call it carving. I mean,
do you have a favorite pattern that you go with? That you just generally like the scary or the weird or?
I like to do themes actually. I'm a little bit of a nerd, so last year I did a firefly.
Ooh, nice. Sounds
complicated. Yeah. It turned out pretty good. So like I like to buy the tools, and do the carving and the shaving and stuff like that if you need to get the glue. And
do you get do you get patterns online?
Yeah, you can usually find patterns online and just go from there. Not artistic enough to freehand it.
Right. Me neither.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of fun. I like doing that. One year for my sister-in-law, I did. She was really into Twilight, so I did a Jacob lantern for her. If you know what I mean. A lantern that had Jacob's profile.
Oh, okay.
Wolf boy.
Oh yeah, nice.
I did that. What else have we done? We've done a bunch, different things like that. So we have fun.
Yeah, it sounds like those are time-consuming and artistic. I, on the other hand, go for very cheap wordplay value. So, or even just kind of Calvin and Hobbesian in my approach to jack-o'-lanterns, where you can have one jack-o'-lantern kind of with bits of like another jack-o'-lantern hanging out of its mouth. jack-o'-lanterns where they are clearly, having brains spill out of their mouth. Those types of cheap things. There's also the well-known one of pumpkin pie, where you carve the pie symbol into the pumpkin, and thus pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie. All right.
It's a good one.
Yes, that is nice. This year I'm doing a pineapple, just so you know.
Okay, so here's another question I've had in years past, and so maybe people would be interested in this. When you do a jack-o'-lantern, if you do it too early, it starts molding like crazy, right?
Unless you do some preparation with it.
So what do you do to prep it? Because I've tried things and generally failed.
So I went on the internet, and I believe, what was it? Basically, you have to get everything out and do, like, you can't have any guts and stuff in it. Have to make it nice and smooth. And then if you put like almost a petroleum over it and kind of heat that up so it gets in there, and then it stays a little bit nicer.
Okay. So last year we tried a bleach solution, and I think that might have worked if we had done it correctly. But I think it said you need to submerge the pumpkin after, like you said, after you've like cleaned it out for like 10 minutes or something like that. And
like 30 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it's a while, and we didn't read that part, and so we like dumped it in there for like 5 seconds and pulled it back out, and it turns out that didn't really do anything. So
no, it has to be in there for a bit, and then I think, yeah, and maybe then sometimes they have the petroleum on. I don't know. There's a couple different methods. So.
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so that's jack-o'-lanterns, worth doing, useful. What about costumes? What do you do with costumes?
So costumes are always a huge topic, I think. There's always the debate whether store buy versus homemade. I feel that if you want to do a homemade, more power to you. You're going to get a better costume, I feel, but it does take more time and effort on your part. So, think about that.
Yep. That's what the internet is great for this, in that you can get lots of ideas out there, but there is sometimes, as is often the case with the internet, too much, right? You get just overloaded with information, overloaded with ideas. It's hard to narrow it down. So let's name a couple of our favorites. I'll start. So there was one a couple of years ago that I saw that I really enjoyed, and people may or may not have seen this before, but it's the blind ref costume. So you get a referee shirt, black shorts or black pants or whatever, and then dark shades for your sunglasses, and then just a white stick, so that you're clearly blind and you're a referee. So a blind ref.
Yes, nice.
High quality. It was a good one.
That is good. There's oh man. So I always find couple costumes are always big.
Oh yeah.
And also, as a larger person, it's always harder for me to find a costume that works well for me.
Sure.
So, I saw one the other day, an avocado.
Nice.
And the belly cut out is the pit.
Awesome.
Yes. So definitely like that. I'm sure everyone that's been to college understands what Halloween means for costumes. So
yeah. We'll leave that there. I have seen some other good ones that I really recommend. So as far as couple costumes go, my wife and I, the last 2 years, have done kind of couple costume things where 2 years ago she was Wonder Woman and I was Clark Kent, with my shirt button unbuttoned so that you could see like a Superman shirt underneath that. So that's a very simple one. All you need is a suit, some glasses, and a Superman shirt that can go underneath. That was very simple for me, at least on my part. My wife's was slightly more complex, but we don't spend a lot of money on these costumes. The other one that we did most recently, and even simpler, was I was Jake from State Farm, which is a well-known costume, strangely from a single advertisement, but it was a good one. So I was Jake from State Farm, and my wife was Flo from Progressive.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched How You Met Your Mother. Kate and I did. She was the slutty pumpkin, but not actually the slutty pumpkin. And I was the hanging chad.
Nice. I have not seen How I Met Your Mother, but that sounds like a winning costume. So
Yes. Yes. Also, things of great couple costumes. Eminem, Oompa Loompa.
right.
Regular
I do-
stuff. Like
Yeah, I do think it's useful if you have a distinctive look or distinctive features, you play into that. So my friend, who looked a lot like Napoleon Dynamite, one year went as Napoleon Dynamite and was very convincing. And then another friend, well, actually, it's the same friend. He's got lots of distinctive features. Grew out his beard 6 months before Halloween once, and went as Paul Bunyan and made himself like a big paper mache ox. A blue ox, and I think he got an actual very large axe, and had this massive beard, and so you can really invest time, and you don't have to invest a lot of money if you invest time, but there are some options there for you. Another one, this one I recommend against, but if you're going as Obi-Wan Kenobi, the original, of course, you're thinking white hair, right? White hair. I recommend going and getting some of that white hair spray stuff from the Halloween party stores, Halloween stores, as opposed to trying to do it on the cheap with, say, flour, as I may have done as a child. Because you put flour in your hair, and then after the Halloween experience is over, trick-or-treating, you come back, you jump in the shower, it turns out flour and water, bad combination in hair. So I essentially had a paper mache head for like a week because it just dried to my head and I was done. So don't do that.
Granted, if you'd taken a longer shower and washed your hair a couple more times,
You would have thought, right? I swear I tried, though. Of course, I was also 11 years old, so maybe I didn't know what I was doing. But something to watch out for is flour in the hair. Probably not a good idea.
Oh, another great one, Coke and Pepsi. Just get a Coke and Pepsi shirt.
Nice.
There you go.
I've also seen another winner I was a big fan of was the the windsock people that they have out in front of like car dealerships where like wind's blowing up the little wind guy and his arms are waving around. You seen that? All right. Yeah. So I had a coworker once that came for our company's Halloween costume competition, and that's what he came as. And so all you had to do was like just wave around and be crazy. Very well done though. Acted the part perfectly. I think if he didn't win, he was certainly he placed. So not a lot of expense for that costume, I don't think. He did buy it, but it's not particularly difficult, but it was a quality one.
Also, plug in for the Office Facebook with Jim. He just wrote book on his face. We called it book face for copyright purposes. I think we can hedge around that.
Right. Yes. There's also anytime you can rip it from a very well-known TV show or something, like you said, How I Met Your Mother or The Office, then obviously you're going to be winning as well. People are going to be able to connect with it because I think that's a lot of the costumes is you want to be able to. Of course, the kids are going to want to go as like a ghost or a witch or something, or Harry Potter, which I had my daughter for 2 years in a row. My daughter, she was like 4 and 5 years old, 2 years in a row, wanted to go as not Hermione Granger, but actually Ron Weasley. Ron Weasley. is who she wanted to be 2 years in a row.
You know, if it had been Harry, I would have understand. But
Exactly, right? Either Hermione or Harry. Who, as a 4-year-old, it's not like we had somehow like emphasized Ron Weasley, but somehow Ron Weasley is who she chose that she wanted to go as. And when she went around dressed up in her Hogwarts robes with, whatever, people ask, of course, oh, you're Hermione. And she would say, no, I am Ron Weasley. Cool.
should have gone at least to go to Ginny Weasley.
Seriously. Anyway, but
Good
so,
times.
yeah.
I was kind of sidetrack off of all the random costumes. If you don't have any kids in your lives and just a bunch of adult friends, I might suggest doing a mystery dinner party thing for
Nice.
Halloween.
Yeah.
You can pick that up for actually pretty cheap. Just send it out to your friends. It's pretty easy to set up and do and really have a fun time if you like doing those kinds of things.
Sure. Cool. That does sound like a good idea. There's a lot of activities out there that you can do either with kids or without kids. There are pumpkin patches. There are, obviously we already talked about haunted houses.
I have flashbacks from pumpkin patches. We lived next to one last year.
Yeah.
Closed off the street every day.
Of course. Right. Yep. Well,
Don't live
there's
near a pumpkin patch. Don't live near one.
right. There's also corn mazes, though, and corn mazes are a lot of fun. So if you do live close enough to a corn maze, those can be a good activity. That sometimes they'll do haunted corn mazes, so you get both kind of the haunted house experience and to do a corn maze. So, but all right, and okay. So then the last two things I wanted to food and kind of games. When you already started talking kind of about games, you can get together as adults and do like a activity like that. There are kids love bobbing for apples. I think that's a activity we often do around Halloween. There's also what is the one I was going to name? Oh yeah, caramel apples. That's not really an activity, but those types of things. Lots of carnival games. If you go to a school or a church, they'll have a Halloween fair, and there are lots of carnival games that people put on usually around this time. So kids love those types of things. Adults might want to take a pass on those. But what was that, Cameron?
So don't put razor blades in your caramel apples. That's not cool.
That is a bad idea.
Remember Mom talking about that as a kid?
Yes, I do remember hearing about that.
90s scare of people putting razor blades and all sorts of random crap in candy.
Yeah. Okay, so last thing, food. And so this will both span the candy that you give away, the candy that you get, and the food that you eat. So candy that you give away, I am cheap. I go for your Costco bag of candy and give that stuff away. Or I know that there are people that do a lot more as far as getting, whole bags of candy, little bags that they give to every kid that comes by, or the big candy bars. Those are the cool people on the street give away the big candy bars. I have never been. I've never aspired to be that person, but maybe there's someday in the future that I will become that person. But I do have candy. I don't want to be a bah humbug Halloween killjoy. So get your candy out. Even if you don't participate, get your candy out so the kids can have some. Dang it! And but just whatever. Kids don't really care that much. Just get some candy out in front if you're going to be the cool kid on the cool house on the block. Get some big ones, bags or big candy bars or whatever. Otherwise, just put the cheap stuff. And if you get the cheap stuff, you can put it out in a bowl in front, because who's going to pillage the cheap stuff? If you get the bigger stuff, then you have to play guard. You've got to make sure that nobody steals all of your big candy bars. But how about you, Cameron? Any particular candy you give away?
Ooh, we usually go for the Costco bags. I remember when we were kids, for our neighbors that we had good relationships with, we always did kind of a goodie bag specifically for them.
Right.
That had a little bit more kind of showing, thanks for being our neighbor, thanks for being our friends, stuff like that.
Sure. Yep.
I have been to places where random different stuff has been put out. I have gone trick or treating with nieces and nephews frequently, not necessarily with your kids, but with my wife's side of the family.
Right.
One of the houses we went to, the guy actually just had a big bag where you just had to stick your hand in and grab stuff. So he had a bunch of different things. He actually had some money on some of the candy that he did.
Nice.
And he actually also had ramen noodles bag. And actually, some of the kids in the neighborhood would specifically go to that house and try just to get the ramen noodles because they thought it was hilarious. So
that's
you
quality.
with it,
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's also when you're planning out your trick or treating experience, it's got to be some combination of finding a place where houses are pretty close together. But also not where a place that's necessarily overrun with kids, because then it just becomes too much. So if you can find a place where houses are pretty close, people participate, but that is not completely overrun, that's going to often be the best bang for the buck, at least stress-wise and candy-wise. So, that's it.
Definitely agree with that. Also, I would like a lot of church groups like to do trunk or treats,
It's true. Yep. So that's an option. Yep. Church groups, I think some schools still do something like that. Sometimes HOAs will actually put on something like that as well. So, look around, try to figure out if there's anything that you want to participate in. Okay, so then, well, let's spend time on what candy you get. Whatever you get, everyone knows the kind of candy they like and what's good quality and what's Smarties. Smarties, low quality candy. Come on, guys. Let's step up our game.
Snort it.
What?
I mean,
what was that?
Don't touch up your Smarties and snort it. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Not a good idea.
Don't snort Pop Rocks. You'll regret that one also.
Oh boy. All right, words of wisdom. Okay, so the final thing is just food other than candy that we do around Halloween. Now, I know my family, the tradition is chili and cornbread. That's what I really like around Halloween. I'm very much into my chili mood when as fall hits, starts to get cold outside. I like my chili, I like my cornbread. I recently had the best cornbread of my life at a work function. It may or may not have tasted kind of like a cinnamon roll, so maybe it's cheating, but it had cornbread texture, dang it. So,
have you had cornbread?
Have I had what?
My cornbread.
I don't know if I have.
Now make a good cornbread. You might like it. I do a sweet cornbread.
Apparently I like sweet cornbread. I wouldn't have necessarily said I would have, and then I had one last year, and it was amazing.
Well, I'll have to make you some. I do need a cast iron skillet too.
Nice. Well, I will not make you my cornbread because I don't make cornbread, but I will eat your cornbread and it'll be fair. So.
Okay. And I'll get some chili to go along with that.
Awesome. So get your chili out, get your cornbread and your candy, and enjoy this Halloween. Any last things to add, Cameron?
Even though it's fun to scare people, it's also fun to make people feel happy. And candy is a good way to do that.
True. So get out there with your candy, bowls of candy, and give kids some smiles or some screams, whatever. Either way, participate, and don't be a Scrooge about Halloween. And we will see you back next time. If you have other ideas for costumes or food that you think we should have mentioned here, drop it in the comments. Send us what you think, and we will try to get around to that for next time. So thanks, and we will see you back for our next podcast.